Ministry and on the staff, when we have our all staff meetings, Morgan comes to our staff meeting and she brings Shepherd with him. And one time she showed up and Shepherd wasn't with her, and I told her, I said, I'm sorry, you're not allowed. And if you don't bring Shepherd, you can't come. So we love Shepherd. We love hanging out with him. And I just appreciate what Morgan does, and all of you who volunteer with that ministry. You make an incredible difference. And I'll call out a church that just tells people we don't have a place for you, and we don't have a place for your child. And I think that absolutely breaks the heart of Holy God, because Jesus loved the children, and he loved the children that everybody else saw as an inconvenience. So we talked about last week in our DNA that it's all about Jesus. And so Jesus shapes our opinion. Jesus tells us what's important. Jesus tells us what matters. And so it really is all about him. And so today we're talking about the second thing is people matter. The two belong together. If you say you love Jesus, then you have to love people, because Jesus cared about people. And people matter to God, therefore they matter to us. And if it's all about Jesus, then people have to matter. One of the most important things that I've learned in my life, above stuff, above priorities, above things that I thought were important, I come to realize they weren't important at all, that the things that really did matter always boiled down to relationships, always boiled down to people. And that's what really matters, because that's what really lasts. So let's see what Jesus had to say. If it's all about him, we always want to see what he has to say. And he was asked by some religious guys, if you sum up all the commands, I mean, they had hundreds and hundreds of laws and regulations, and they wanted to get a summary of him. They were always trying to trick him, but they wanted to know, say, all right, what do you think are the most important commandments to keep? And basically Jesus said, it's two. There's two of them. And if you get these two right, everything else kind of takes care of itself. And here's what he said. You must love the Lord your God with all of your heart, that's your emotions, with all of your soul, that's your being, and with all of your mind in your thought life. So basically, everything about you, everything that makes you you, is to love God. And so you put your trust in him. Your entire being belongs to him. He said, so you've got to get this right. If you miss this one, nothing else matters. And then he said something, and don't miss this statement. He said, this is the first and greatest commandment. Then he says, the second is equally important. So he puts it on the same level. You cannot have one without the other. He says, love your neighbor as yourself. So Jesus said, if you say you love God and you don't love your neighbor, then you don't really love God. I mean, if you've got to have your priorities right, and your priority is God, and your priority is other people. And so the question then is, who is your neighbor? I mean, the religious guys always would get technical with Jesus about stuff. And so they said, well, who is your neighbor? And and when Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, he's actually quoting Leviticus 19. And there's some modern day translations that totally misinterpret this, and they believe it's a mandate for self-love. But rather, what it is saying, it prompts believers, it prompts us to measure our love for others by what we wish for ourselves. You want to be respected? Well, yeah, well then respect others. Do you want to be cared for in your time of need? Well, yeah, well then care for people in their time of need. Do you want to be genuinely loved by others? Well, yeah. Well, then love other people, genuinely love other people. Do you want to be treated with respect? Well, yeah. Well, then treat people with respect. Do you want to be forgiven when you make a stupid mistake? Well, absolutely. Well, then do that for others. When somebody falls and gets mud all over them, don't sit there and say, hey, you got mud all over you. They already know that. Help them get up. And then offer to wash their clothes off. Offer to clean them up. Offer to help them get back on their feet. Because that's what you would want. I mean, if you mess up, you don't need somebody to judge you. You need somebody to help you, to care for you. So you love others as you wish to be loved. So Jesus, in Matthew 22:39, when Jesus says neighbor, he means somebody far more than the person that lives next door. Jesus' teaching makes it clear that your neighbor is anybody who intersects your life. Anybody whose life and your life intersects, that's your neighbor. So that means it could be the person checking you out at the store. Your life just intersect with that person. It could be your actual physical neighbors. But it could be anybody that you encounter, anybody you cross paths with. Anytime you intersect with another life, that's your neighbor. Now, the clearest explanation that Jesus gave about this is in Luke 10, and it's the parable of the Good Samaritan. Listen to what he said. Because they asked him in Luke 10, 29, they said, well, who is my neighbor? So Jesus tells them about a Jewish guy who is attacked by robbers. He's beaten up in a bad way physically, and they took all of his stuff, so he had nothing. And a priest, a Jewish priest, walked right past him, just ignored him. A temple assistant passed by him as well. The people that should have done something, because this was one of their own. This was a fellow Jew, and they didn't do it. So along comes a Samaritan who is not Jewish. In fact, Jewish people and Samaritan people kind of looked at each other as enemies. They would ignore each other. They'd stay away from each other. That's kind of like the woman by the well. That was a big deal when Jesus stopped and encountered her, because he wasn't, as a Jewish and as a man, wasn't supposed to be talking to a woman, much less a Samaritan woman. And so the Samaritan guy, the one you would least expect it from, he is the one that stopped. And he's the one that bound his wounds. He's the one that found him a place to stay and paid for his medical well-being and paid for his lodging and paid for his food and pretty much gave a blank check to say, do whatever you got to do to take care of this guy, and I'll pay you on my way back for anything else. I mean, you would expect that from one of his own, but not somebody that was considered your enemy. So Jesus asked the question, which of these three would you say was a neighbor to the man who was attacked by the bandits? And they said, rightly so, the one who showed mercy. And then Jesus said, yeah, guess what? You need to go and do the same thing. Yes, you're correct. You do the same thing. So that's the key. The question isn't merely who qualifies to be my neighbor. So you don't sit there and calculate, wait a minute, is this a biblical definition of a neighbor right here? Am I obligated to help this person? If you're asking yourself those kind of questions, you're already missing the whole point. Jesus shifts it to, will I be a neighbor to the person that God puts in front of me? If I say I love Jesus about everything, with everything, then people have to matter. You know, I love the fact that lost people love being around Jesus. I mean, they obviously didn't agree with him, They certainly probably didn't like what he stood for, but for somehow they knew that Jesus cared about them. They knew that. They just instinctively felt that. And so when Jesus is talking, he shared in Luke 15 about the 100 sheep. He said, tax collectors and other notorious sinners who often came to listen to Jesus teach. I mean, they wanted to hear what this guy had to say. This made the Pharisees, the religious teachers of the law, complain, of course it did, that he was associating with such sinful people, even eating with them. My goodness. So Jesus told them this story. So if a man had 100 sheep and one of them gets lost, what would he do? Wouldn't he leave the 99 others into the wilderness and go and search for the one that was lost until he finds it? Wouldn't he do that? And so when he finds it, he will joyfully carry it home on his shoulders. And when he arrives, he will call together all of his friends and neighbors saying, hey, rejoice with me because I found my lost sheep. In the same way. So here he says it. He says, now, just like that story, in the same way, listen to this. This is huge. Jesus is pulling back the curtain on heaven right here. He's showing you what heaven's like a little bit. There is more joy in heaven over one lost sinner who repents and returns to God than over 99 others who are righteous and haven't strayed away. Jesus just shared with you what gets a party going in heaven. And he said, you want to see what we party about in heaven? Here it is. When one person who is far from God returns back to God. When one person comes home. When one person says yes to Jesus. There's a grand old party in heaven. Man, that is so exciting. I mean, when we had that baptism at the lake, I was in the water for an hour. And that was amazing. Now, on the ride home in my car, I kept saying, what is that smell? Well, it was my clothes from being in the lake for an hour. But I want to tell you, there was a party going on in heaven. That's why we celebrate when somebody's baptized, because they're certainly celebrating in heaven. We're just joining heaven with what they're doing. And so every time you are a part, so don't miss this, when you care about others, you are causing people in heaven to get excited about the potential of we're getting ready to have a party. Think about that. Every time you genuinely love someone who truly needs to be loved, I would imagine all the angels kind of gathered and looking over and said, oh, we might be having a party. This is getting excited. This person might say yes to Jesus. I mean, heaven's rooting for you. When you encounter somebody intersects your life and you get to share with them who Jesus is. So why go after one? I mean, the man still had 99 sheep. I mean, from a business standpoint, 99%, that's not bad. But Jesus isn't talking about percentages. He's talking about people. And one person is never just a percentage to God. He's an individual that has a name, an individual that has an image of God, an individual that God created, an individual that God cares about, an individual that God so longs for them to be in heaven with him, and that's why he sent his son to die for them, an individual that God, it breaks his heart if they say no to him and they have to pay for their sin personally. Because every person you ever meet, every person you've ever meet has something about them that's eternal, absolutely eternal. Their house is not eternal. Your house is not eternal. Their career is not eternal, neither is yours. Their bank account is not eternal, nor is yours. Their possessions are not eternal, and nor yours. Their popularity is not eternal. Their success is not eternal, but they are eternal. C.S. Lewis once wrote that we have never talked to a mere mortal. Everybody you've ever talked to is immortal. They live forever. Every person you've ever encountered, every person sitting with you today, they're immortal. We all are. And that's why we matter to God. So, think about that. Person sitting next to you, the person that waits on you at lunch today, the person that checks you out at the grocery store, the teenager you walked by, the children that are over playing in the children's building, the neighbor that gets on your last nerve, the person whose politics are different from yours, the person whose lifestyle you don't understand, the person who doesn't believe anything that you believe, they have an eternal soul. They're not just passing through your day. And someday, when everything we spend so much time with and worrying about is gone, people will still matter. So what does it look like for us? I'm going to share 4 quick things with you, 4 practical stages. First of all, see people. Jesus noticed people. He noticed the blind man beside the road, the woman at the well. He noticed Zacchaeus up a tree. He noticed the leopard that nobody would touch or go near. He noticed the children that the disciples thought were getting on everybody's nerves and were interruptions. Jesus saw every one of them. And sometimes I wonder how many people I look at without really seeing them. I'm sad to say, it's often. We can walk through a crowd and never see one single person. We can sit in a crowd and not see anybody else. So here's something incredibly practical. Walk slowly through a crowd. I had a pastor friend that told me that one day. He said, Don, he said, at church, always give yourself plenty of time to walk slowly through the campus so that you can stop and talk to people, so that you can encounter people, so that you can pay attention to people. And I've learned that advice was great. And every time I do get in a hurry and I walk right by somebody, later on I feel a conviction like, you know, they really needed you to talk to them in that moment and you didn't do it. In the first service, I saw somebody sitting there by themselves, and I always try to pay attention to that, and I went over and just kind of sat beside them and said, hey, tell me about yourself. And they said, well, I've been coming a couple of Sundays. I said, really? I said, well, what's going on? And man, he just poured his heart out. He said, I just moved my family here. I've been with the same company for a long time, and things aren't working out. I said, man, that's tough. I said, can I pray for you? In fact, I grabbed one of the deacons to come alongside of us because, 2 or more gather in your name, there's power in that. And so we just prayed right then and there. I'm so thankful I didn't rush back to go talk to somebody else that I did know, because I would have missed the blessing of being able to pray for somebody who desperately needed it. I want to tell you, it warms my heart. I see this all the time. I'll see people gathered over in a corner just praying for someone. Don't be in such a hurry that you don't notice those around you. Who can I see today? Who can I see today? Every once in a while we'll get a note from somebody, and it rarely happens, but we'll get a note and say, hey, I've attended your church Sunday, and nobody talked to me. Now, I'm sitting there going, I don't know. Gateway's not that kind of church. Did you go into the bathroom and just sit in the stall the whole time and avoided people? I mean, we're just not that kind of church. You know, we tend to, somebody's going to talk to you, but I know it can happen, but I hope it never happens to you. And I hope you never do that to somebody else. You know, maybe, you go up to somebody and say, hey, I haven't seen you at Gateway before, and, I'm Don. What's your name? Well, I'm John. I've been a member of your church for 20 years now. And I'm like, oh, yeah, great. I'm glad we finally met. And, be willing to embarrass yourself. Just go up and say, hey, I know I should know your name, but I don't, so can you tell me your name? So, see people. Secondly, move towards people. The shepherd knew a sheep was missing. I don't know how he tells them apart, but I don't know. A shepherd, they say the sheep knows their shepherd, but I think the shepherd knows their sheep, and he knew one was gone. He probably knew which one it was. And so he moved towards the lost sheep. He went to find it. In fact, Jesus said in Luke 19, he said, for the Son of Man came to seek and save those who are lost. So the shepherd went after the lost sheep. Jesus came to go after lost people. If I'm going to be like Jesus, I got to do the same thing. Sometimes we live as though we have unlimited time. I promise you, you don't. We think, well, I'll get around to it sometime. I'll invite them sometime. I will eventually text them. I'll eventually talk to them. I'll eventually share when I have the opportunity to share. But nobody knows how long we have those opportunities. There are people in your life right now who may be more open to Jesus than you realize. There are people in your life right now who are living in quiet desperation, and they don't know what to do because everybody thinks they have their life together. That individual say, well, everybody thinks I got my life together, and I don't want to admit that I don't. And you, as you move towards people, the Holy Spirit, I believe, will begin to tell you, this person needs you. You need to represent me to this person. And that's who we are. We're ambassadors for Christ. That means we're his representative. And so it's like when we have an ambassador in another country, they represent our president, they represent our country to that country. And they don't speak on their own. They speak whatever they're told to speak. We're the same way. We are representatives of Holy God to the people around us, and we speak what Jesus tells us to speak. So my question then is, who are you moving towards right now? If there's somebody you haven't seen in church a while, well, text them. Ask them how they're doing. As someone who's sitting alone, go sit with them. Someone who's hurting, well, give them a call and say, hey, I heard stuff was going on. How can I pray for you? Someone you know that doesn't know Jesus, you invite them. Someone that God keeps bringing them to your mind. Don't ignore that. You be the somebody. Don't assume that someone else will make that call. Don't assume that someone else will give that invite. Don't assume that someone else will tell them about Jesus, because we're not simply talking about making somebody's Sunday better. We're talking about eternity is at stake. So see people, move towards people, and the third thing is make room for people. This is where people matter gets personal, because saying people matter, it costs something. Living like people matter, it's going to cost you something. It's going to cost your being inconvenienced. It's going to cost you some of your time. It's going to cost you maybe your seat. It's going to cost you maybe have to park a little more inconvenient. It's going to cost you your schedule, your preferences. You see, suddenly some of the things churches argue about will incredibly seem so small when you put it beside eternity. Is my preference worth being compared to someone's soul? People matter more than my preferences. Fourth and last thing, point people to Jesus. Ultimately, loving people means that it's more than just being nice to them. You can feed somebody, you can encourage somebody, you can help somebody, you can befriend somebody, you can serve somebody, but we should do every one of those things for the purpose of being able to tell them something. See, if we really believe people are eternal, eventually we have to ask ourselves, do they know Jesus? Because that's what matters most. So I want you to think about that one person. You think about that one person. Don't think about the whole world. Think about one person. Maybe it's somebody in your family or in your neighborhood, or someone you play a sport with, or someone who's drifted away from God, someone you know doesn't know Jesus. Put a face with it, put a name with it, and remember that person has an eternity. So your assignment is this: do something for that one person. Do something for them. Obviously, easily pray for them, but get in touch with them. Text them, call them, have lunch with them, invite them. Tell them your story about Jesus. Tell them what Christ has done for you. But whatever you do, don't do nothing. Do something. People are eternal. I mean, that's in our DNA. It's all about Jesus, therefore people matter. And they matter forever. You know, it really takes unselfish people to grow a church. Because when we invite other people in our church, we're also inviting their problems to come with them. We're inviting their issues to come with them. And we're willing to help share that load. We're inviting their past hurts to come with them. We're inviting their issues to come with them, their pain, their grief to come with them. And it's an opportunity for us to minister to them in all of that. So we cannot be selfish people and invite people at the same time. And I want to tell you, if you ever get to the point and say, hey, we got enough people at church, we're comfortable, we don't need anybody else. You know what you're saying? Let's just call it what it is. You're saying, when we say we've got enough, we're saying we don't care if all the others go to hell. That's what we're saying. And somewhere between 70 and 80% of the people in this community are facing eternity without Jesus. That's serious to holy God. So, are you willing to be inconvenienced with me? I mean, every time someone else comes into our fellowship, it becomes an inconvenience for the staff. There's more people to minister to. It becomes an inconvenience on the resources in the church. It becomes an inconvenience for space and parking. And we say, great. That's okay. Because they matter. They matter to holy God, therefore they matter to us. Because if we really believe we love Jesus more than anything else, then we have to love people. And that's what we do. So, are you willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of a person's eternal soul? Let's pray. Now, as we're praying, I want you to think about that one person. Just put a face and put a name in your mind. And maybe you don't know their name, but you know their face. And you know every time you see them, God kind of pricks your heart a little bit about that person. Just think about it for a moment. Just say, Lord, I'm willing to be inconvenienced for that one lost sheep. Because you died for them. That's how much you love them. And Lord, it's easy for me to just be comfortable because I'm saved and I know I'm going to heaven. But I pray that I stay uncomfortable because of those who are not. My time is limited. Let me focus on what really matters. My stuff does not matter. My hobbies do not matter. What matters are other people. Let my priorities stay focused on what truly matters. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's stand.